Okay, so we're going to continue with the demo I started in class, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit to show you where we left off with the demo. So we basically created an HTML page that has a simple user interface. There's no CS at all on this yet. That's not uncommon for me to work that way. I'll get the code running and then I'll incrementally go through and improve it and embellish it and deal with the look and feel. So essentially what we have here is we have an input box where we're going to get a value from the user, and then an output box where we're going to specify the square of the value they entered, and that'll happen when they push the command button here that says square it. Let's look at the code for this real quickly. So you can see that I have two input elements. Here's the input to get the value, and then here's the input that I'll use to actually as output to display the value. Okay. Now, one thing I discovered after the class session is in HTML5, this is a singleton tag, and it's not required to use the XHTML, XML style ending. Because I often use XML with my HTML code, though, I'm going to try and get in the habit of doing it. This BR tag here is similar. You don't need to have this in HTML5. I'm going to recommend that you get in the habit of doing that. At this point, though, I'm not really sure of the ramifications. So just a quick review here. We talked about the fact that we're going to use these HTML form elements outside of a form context to create a simple user interface for our DOM programs. So I don't have the form element tag, and so then of course I don't have a submit, reset button and all that stuff. So basically what I have here is what I originally sketched out in class for this application. A single input type here where I can read a value in from the user, and then another one where I can display the output. And so this simple example is going to help you to do the lab this week, where you have to do one of several options for creating a DOM program. I think you can do a centigrade to Fahrenheit converter, a square foot calculator for building materials. There's a couple options in there. So I think there's 4 in all. All right, let me save this because I fixed my input tags. And now let's go back over to our JavaScript file. And we started this, so of course the entire script is in the window on load function. And notice there's the end and the beginning of the script, and it encapsulates all of the code. I've already created 3 variables, and I'm using the get element by ID to grab the elements that I've marked in the HTML coding. So val2 square is the input, result is where I'm going to display the output, and square button is the button the user will push. Okay. We set up our function here, which we're going to attach to the square button, and this function will run when the user clicks the square button. And we just basically wrote the outline for the code here. Again, I always recommend that you do this in any program, and you write a pseudocode outline, write it right in the IDE. It becomes the comments then that document the code. Nobody likes to go in after the fact and add comments to code they've written. Okay, and you're not going to be any different. All right, let's think about some variables that we need here. So I think I'm going to want a variable for the converted value to input. So again, when I input, it'll be a string, and I'll have to convert it. And so I'm just going to say, well, you know what? Looking at our comments, I think we can just go down here and put this right in here. So let me just do that instead, because look how this will work. So var initial val equals, and now because I'm going to read the value in as a string, I'm going to use the parse int or parse float method to convert it. So parse, and let's just make this float, although we didn't really specify if we would take that or not. Okay, now to read the value here, I'm going to take my input val element, which is the variable I created up here, which found the val2square input field, and then it has a property called value, and that's not a method, that's a property, so no parens there, and there we go. So again, if you look at our comments here, this part of the code reads the value, and then of course the parse float method that it wraps around it will convert it to a number. And so now initial val has the number that the user entered. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and calculate the square. So I'm just going to say var result equals initial val times initial val, and then to display it I'm going to write to the value of output val. So output val dot value equals result. Now, interestingly enough, this is actually on the surface, it looks like a type mismatch, right? Because the result is a floating point value, but the value in the HTML is actually a string. I'm pretty sure that JavaScript will do the conversion for me. If it didn't, I'd use the old Java trick of adding an empty string to the numeric value to cause it to auto-convert. Okay, but that's not necessary, so we'll try it without doing that. Okay, now I've basically got this ready to roll, but just like when we do our Java GUIs, we have to add the action listener, the command button event, the method that is, to the event when the button is pushed. So again, I've already got my command button up here where I searched through my code and found it. So I'll come on down here and then say command button dot, and it should be on click, which comes up in my IntelliSense. This is one place where I always get confused, so it's good to use the tool because you would think that there's going to be a capital C there, and it's not. So command button on click equals name of function. Now the function here is called square it, so square it, and this is really important. When you assign a function and refer to it as an object, you don't use the parens. That's actually syntactically correct, but not what you want. So if I do this, it won't work correctly. What I'm saying there is assign the value of the square it function to the onClick event. Instead, I want to assign the function to the onClick event. So this is correct. All right, let's do Control S. And now I'm going to go back to my code view here, and I'm in my HTML. And whoops, we're still in the JavaScript, sorry, source code. And now I want to go ahead. Now I can run this in two ways. Let's try our, it looks like I don't have, there it is, live view. Okay, so here's the live view. And I'll go ahead and see if this is going to work. I'll put the 3 in there. I'm expecting the 9, and it doesn't work. Okay, so it looks like I might have an error here in my code. And I actually already know that I have the error because I have a typo in the code. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you how I can use some of the more advanced debugging tools. So let's go ahead and click again to turn off the live code and go back to code view. And now I'm going to go ahead and run this. I'll preview it in the browser. And I'm going to go with Chrome. And so when I get to Chrome, first thing I'll do is try just to make sure it doesn't actually work. And it doesn't. Okay, so I get no feedback. I'm not sure what's going on. So I think a good thing to try right off is let me figure out if my function is running or not. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'll pop back into Dreamweaver, go to this, the script, and I'm just going to put an alert right here, window.alert, and I'm just using this for debugging. So function call, that tells me that the code ran as far as running the function. Okay, again, I'll save, and I'm gonna pop back to the browser. Now this is really important. I changed the code, so I have to refresh or reload the browser to make sure that I'm running the newest version of the code. Okay, I got the 3 in there, hit the square it. All right, I'm not seeing the alert, so that's telling me that there's something wrong and that the function is not running. So let's go back into Dreamweaver. And okay, so I've got to square it, and I assigned it to the command button, and then the command button is looking for something called square button. Let's check that and make sure we have that spelled correctly. So I'll go back to the HTML and the source code, come on down here, and sure enough, I've misspelled square button here. So that's the problem. All right. Now, I did find the problem, and I can fix it here, but I want to show you one other thing that I can do in the browser that'll be handy. So I'm going to go on over here, and I'm in Chrome. All the browsers have something similar. We're going to go to Tools. We're going to go to Developer Tools. And then here in the Developer Tools, there's a console. So I'm going to do that. And here we go. Uncaught type error. Cannot see property on click of null. So what that's saying is that when I tried to assign the on click, I assigned it to a reference that was null. And that's exactly what happened here, because it was looking for square button and I misspelled this. So I already knew that was the error, but I wanted to show you how I can use the console in the developer tools to get it. Okay, so Control S to save. Let's go back into Chrome. Let's go ahead and reload the page, and we'll go ahead and try again. So we'll hit 3, we'll hit square it, and there's my alert. So now my function is running, and I got 9. So now it's working well. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do this. Let's try and square. Let's try a floating point number, 4.0. And then I'll hit square it. Again, there's my alert, and 16. Okay, so the alert is just there for debugging. I can remove that. So let's go back into Dreamweaver, and I'll go to my JS file, and I'll go ahead and delete this. Now, I could just comment it out if I thought for some reason I was going to use it. I did this video before, and I actually had another error in here, but it looks like I didn't replicate that. So it looks like now everything's working. And so essentially it's kind of interesting, because what will happen is it just checks the syntax, but things like these references it doesn't check. So 90% of the time what's going to happen is you're going to make a typo here, either where you type the name in here, or as you saw where I did, where I typed the name in here. Okay? So one way to kind of try to prevent that is to have a really good methodology where you always do it the same way, and that means use the camel case and do it that way. Okay? All right, so this is pretty good. We have a finished program. Of course, our next trip would be to go ahead and embellish it. I'm going to go ahead and save the video now so it won't be too long, and hopefully I can do that easily. Yeah, there we go. All right.